Hi everyone, welcome back to Deep Dive Daily. Okay, so today we are diving into the single most incredible, high stakes, and just absolutely insane story ever told. And you want to know who the main character is? It's you. Let's get into it. Right, so I want you to forget everything you learned in biology class. We're not talking about some gentle, quiet process here. No. We are talking about a brutal, beautiful, straight-up sci-fi epic. A battle for survival against truly impossible odds that every single one of us, you, me, everyone, had to win just to exist. This is your secret origin story.
And our story starts with, well, the greatest race in the entire universe. It's this desperate, high-stakes sprint where the finish line is literally life itself. And falling behind means, well, it means you just don't happen.
So picture this. You're at the starting line, but you're not alone. You're up against an army of tens of millions of competitors. All of you have the same goal, but you're on this razor-thin timer, running on fumes, and heading straight into a war zone.
The female body is basically a fortress, okay? The very first obstacle is a super acidic environment that just wipes out millions instantly. The few who survive then have to navigate this treacherous maze of protein nets. It's like a biological minefield. And all the while, the mother's own immune system is actively hunting them down, treating them like hostile invaders that need to be destroyed. So after that absolutely brutal gauntlet, that army of tens of millions, it gets whittled down to maybe 200. That is less than 0.0001% of the original force. I mean, the odds are they're staggering. And in the end, after all of that, there can only be one. The survivors finally reach their goal, the mighty egg, which is 10,000 times bigger than them. And here's the kicker. It's the egg that makes the final choice. It accepts a single winner, and that winner was you. But listen, winning this insane race, that was just the beginning.
So you won the race. Time to celebrate, right? Ha! Not even close. Now a whole new fight begins. The fight for a place to even live. The newly formed you, just this tiny ball of cells, now has to convince its brand new host to actually let it stay. And this sets up a huge conflict of interest. On one side, you have the mother's body, which needs to conserve its resources. It's only going to support an embryo that it thinks is strong and viable. But on the other side, you've got the embryo. That's us. And we are in a literal life or death situation. We will do anything to survive.
So what happens next is this intense negotiation, a chemical conversation. The embryo starts sending out signals, basically pleading its case. The uterus sends back its own signals, testing and probing. If the mother's body doesn't like what it hears in this conversation, it's game over.
And this is where things get wild. The embryo doesn't just ask nicely to stay. No way. It deploys these little infiltration units. They're basically bubbles of genetic material that act like a human virus. They actually invade the uterine cells to brainwash them into giving it shelter. It's this incredibly aggressive, brilliant act of survival.
Okay, so assuming you survive that first test, you're now facing an even bigger challenge. You have to build your entire life support system from scratch, and you do it by creating something truly amazing.
You guys, this is one of the most incredible parts of our entire story. When we were just a tiny embryo, we split ourselves into two teams of cells. One team was destined to become us, the person. The other team, these things called trophoblasts, were an identical clone of us, like a guardian angel clone, and their only purpose was to sacrifice themselves to build our first home. They never had a chance to become a person. Their entire existence was just so that we could. And these clone cells get to work with a vengeance. They start cloning themselves on a massive scale. Then they literally drill into the uterine tissue to tap into the mother's blood vessels. And from this violent invasion, they construct a brand new organ, the placenta. Your personal fortress, your pantry, and your life support system, all in one.
So, now we have a home, and we're hooked up to this amazing life-sustaining supply line. But this introduces a whole new dynamic, a really delicate and sometimes pretty tense partnership. You could call it a cooperative conflict for resources.
The placenta basically becomes a master manipulator. It starts releasing hormones that funnel glucose, that's energy, directly from the mother to the fetus. It's essentially an energy heist, redirecting all these resources to fuel our insane growth.
And all of this creates this fragile piece. See, the mother's body is willing to give, but not at the cost of her own survival.
At the same time, the father's genes inside the fetus are pushing for survival no matter what. Their interests aren't perfectly aligned, so it becomes this constant negotiation, this biological balancing act, where both sides have to cooperate to make it through alive.
So let's just put this all together. From winning a race against tens of millions, to fighting for a place to live, to literally building an entire organ from a sacrificed clone of yourself, all of this is the incredible, untold story of you.
But you know, for all this talk about war and conflict and battles, that's not the whole picture. Yes, you were a fighter, absolutely, but you were also chosen. You were chosen by the egg. You were chosen by your mother's body, which listened to your chemical signals and decided, yes, I'm going to protect and nourish you. So it's a story of brutality, for sure, but it's also a story of connection and acceptance.
Just think about that for a second. Every single person you see walking down the street today is the ultimate victor of this same impossible journey. It is the most universal and yet the most deeply personal, epic story there is. Isn't that wild? Hit that like button if you enjoyed this, share it around, and subscribe for more. Drop a comment below with your views. See you tomorrow at the same time.